Labour governments are Labour governments, and in Britain, the Labour governments have never been associated with good business growth. Even Tony Blair's Labour government, which did pitch itself as a pro-business, pro-growth government, had an air of, well, yes, but also possibly not. And Keir Starmer, who has definitely been trying to sell himself as a as a magnet for growth, is certainly failing because Rachel Reeves, the local administrator for the Bank of Scotland or whatever it was, has been made Chancellor of the Exchequer, and this has not filled people with confidence, right? So the Institute of Directors has an economic confidence index which measures business leader optimism in prospects for the UK economy, and this isn't going great. So in August, it was minus 12. In September, it was minus 38. And then the budget hit. Things went poorly, I think, for the budget, and Politico give us a quick write-up. For some reason, the Labour government were like, yeah, so we're £22 billion in the hole every year. And everyone's like, okay, well, maybe we should cut sending money overseas. Maybe we should cut some of these boondoggle green initiatives. Maybe we could cut this. Maybe we could stop giving money. Maybe we could cut billions by paying money to foreigners, or perhaps stop health tourism on the NHS or something like that. Maybe we could stop paying welfare to people who have literally just arrived here yesterday. But the Labour government are like, no. What we're going to do is crank up taxes by 40 billion. It's like, okay, but I thought there was 22 billion. They're like, yes. But we've got lots of redistribution to go with. And so everyone's like, oh, cool. Oh, brilliant. Well, how are you going to get that? Well, I mean, as they put in the budget, this is going to be, by far the biggest revenue raiser, says Politico, will be an increase in taxes paid by employers. 25 billion a year. Well, I thought the black hole was 22 billion. Why do anything else beyond this? Well, the answer is because Labour have a plan for the country, and it isn't something they have a political mandate for. They don't have the popular will behind them or anything like that. And so they're just taking advantage while the getting is good, right? But anyway, so they're going to raise 25 billion a year on businesses. Do you think that's not going to have a knock-on effect? Business leaders themselves are like, look, if you do that, we're just going to have to stop. We're going to have to stop employing people. So that'll be fewer jobs, a shrinking economy. And the way they're doing it is by raising national insurance on employees. So basically, if you were raising taxes on employees, the people who actually work, so the people who pay you tax should be the people who work, instead you're raising the national insurance on the business. So the weight of it falls on the business itself. So, and I say this as a business owner, obviously, you've got to plan for what you expect to come in, and then make sure that what you send out is well within a margin of error, because there are always, like people on the left especially, seem to think that businesses are like reservoirs, right? They seem to think that a business is just a big pool of money that is being stored up by a CEO, which is not true. Businesses are rivers. They are a constant flow, money in, money out, and you use whatever's left over in the reservoir afterwards is essentially the money you can use to reinvest in the business or take as a dividend or whatever, right? The reason that you're doing the business in the first place. And depending on the size of the business, depends on the scale of the river and the size of the sort of lagoon you get out of the total of it. But the point being is, you can never be too frivolous because you don't know what's going to happen, right? At any point, something catastrophic that could not be foreseen could come up. Like, like the studio, there could be a fire or something, and I have to replace that. There could be anything could happen, and you might be suddenly in the hole for a large amount of money. So you can't just spend frivolously. So you can't just say, well, okay, we're just gonna extract everything we can from the business and just assume that tomorrow is going to be just like yesterday. You don't know, and if you do that, you'll end up not being prepared for a particular problem that comes up, and then, oh, that's the end of the business. You can't afford that. This has to be done. You can't afford to do it. Then your business is over. All of those people lose their jobs. You lose your livelihood. All of the work and effort you put into building the thing up is gone. And now good luck. You're on your own. But anyway, so squeezing businesses is not good for their growth. right? Especially when that money is literally just being stolen by the government. It's not good for growth. It doesn't encourage employers to want to hire people, right? You think, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could, like, if I didn't pay a quarter of the profits of this business in corporation tax, I could have a 25% bigger workforce. I could have more people doing things, and they would be people who are earning money and putting money into the economy and themselves paying taxes and then paying VAT on the things they buy and such. But no, the government just steals 25% of the money that we make, and therefore that's just money I can't afford to pay people, and that's just money that I can't use on improving my business. Okay, well that means my business is not as big and flourishing as it could be. And so when the government's like, right, we're going to raise national insurance, okay, well that's money I've got to pay the government. So that's money so if I want an extra employee, I know I'm in the hole for even more than I already was. So I guess we'll just go without that thing, because it's just not worth the time, the hassle, the money, the effort, and the uncertainty of hiring another extra person, which is a shame. So I know people I'd like to hire that I would hire in a heartbeat if I could, but I can't. And so this is, again, why government taxing businesses is bad for growth. It hurts the economy. And I'm not an economist, and I can see this. I just run a business, and I can feel it. I feel when the government reaches down into my pocket and takes out. And so I can't, it's not a secret. Anyone who actually knows anything about economics will tell you all of this. And this is what the business owners themselves have been telling the Labour government. If you start cranking up taxes on us, you make Britain uncompetitive. If you are a foreign business owner and you're like, right, I've got how many billions or whatever to invest somewhere, why would you invest it in Britain? Why would you invest it in a country that has a sort of predatory socialist government that is looking at the nation and thinking, right, how can we squeeze money out of that in order to give it to people who don't deserve it? How can we do this? What can we do? Right, we're going to, the businesses, they've got money. Great, we'll take that. We're literally going to squeeze the money out of them and give it to Abdul living in a bloody hotel somewhere at the taxpayer expense. We're going to pour that into the NHS and burn that up, paying for God knows what. Like, why would you want to be someone who invested in Britain? You're not going to make anything out of it. You know that the government is going to see you as a cash cow, and they're going to start squeezing you. Anyway, there are lots of other things, but the biggest one is, of course, the tax raises through the employment's national insurance. And this obviously didn't make business owners very confident, didn't make them encouraged about the way things are going. So a poll of 700 Institute of Directors members found that 2/3 of them felt very negatively towards the autumn budget, and 2/3 thinks the government doesn't support growth. Yeah, that's true. That's obviously true. That's obviously what is happening here. They obviously don't want us to prosper. What they are is a bunch of communists. Rachel Reeves literally put a picture of the founder of the Communist Party of Britain up in 11 Downing Street. She took down one of Thatcher's economists, puts up a communist. And it's like, okay, well, why would you? And this is why like nearly 10,000 millionaires a year are fleeing Britain. It's like, no, the government's just here to rinse me. They're going to impoverish me. Why would I stay here? What do I gain from this? And the government like, well, moral rectitude as you advance a redistributive social justice program. It's like, sorry, I'm not up for that. I didn't sign up for that. I don't agree with you. I don't think those people deserve my money I work hard for. And they're just sat around. I mean, I'm going to go into town in a minute and I'm going to see just foreign people sat around in coffee shops drinking using my money. And it's infuriating. I can't stand it. But anyway, this has been a steady decline, as you see. The business leader optimism in prospects for the UK economy fell from minus 38 in September to minus 52 in October. All right, so people it's just getting worse. Oh yeah, no, this country's going down the bloody tubes. And for some reason we elected a Labour government, which means we're going even further down the tubes. And this is just everywhere. Everyone knows. Everyone knows. And so, I mean, it's reached the lowest since April 2020, when the government was locking us down. Right? That's the only thing worse that they can actually do, is physically close your business. Like, make sure you are not allowed to trade. That's the only way this gets worse. At the moment, the business leader optimism prospects fell to minus 65 in November, right? And like I said, the record low was minus 69 in April, when we were literally locked in our houses and businesses weren't allowed to function. Like, how much worse can it get? Well, not that much worse. Right? Not that much worse. And so, okay, it's been 5 months now. The Labour government have implemented this. What's happened? Well, exactly what the business leaders told them would happen, because they are the people who are literally the ones in charge of hiring. They said, if you start raising national insurance on employees in businesses, we will hire less, which means fewer people have jobs, which means unemployment crisis, which means economy starts shrinking, things get worse. And what did we find out? Minus 0.1% growth this quarter. Why won't they listen? What is wrong with them? But anyway, so this Financial Times published the other day, the UK private sector employment shrinks at the fastest pace since 2021, because it has. So they point out here that the Purchasing Managers Employment Subindex, below 50, means a majority of businesses are reporting a contraction. Well, currently it's about 46. So the majority of businesses are now contracting. They're not growing, they're contracting. This is what Labour has done. Because everyone knows that businesses will start paying the national insurance contribution on employees' earnings from £5,000 rather than the current £9,000, which means a 1.2 percentage rise points to 15%. So basically, that means the Labour government is like, yeah, no, we're going to get 25 billion out of you. And we don't care how this affects the British economy. We don't care. But there are going to be knock-on effects from this. I'm not an economist, but I know there are going to be knock-on effects from this. Like, the Labour government is actively contracting the economy. They were warned about this in advance. They said, we don't care. We're going to do it anyway. We're still a growth government. And now they've done it. Business confidence is completely shot. There's no particular reason to invest in Britain, because you know that the predatory government is going to extract everything they can unjustly from you. And now we have the consequence that is them literally squeezing and shrinking the economy. The Labour government are directly responsible for this. Like, if they were smart, and of course, there's something called the Laffer curve in economics. Now, like I said, I'm not an economist, but what this is the projected, so Labour, Rachel Reeves, will have sat there and gone, well, if we tax this much, we'll get this much money. And economists have shown that, no, that's not true, right? You think, hypothetically, in your projections, in your theory, that you get this much money, but what actually happens is people respond to incentives. And if you say, right, we're going to rank up taxes, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other, people respond to that and say, okay, well, I'm not going to make that money. I'm going to move whatever assets I can outside of your jurisdiction. I'm just not going to hire people like on this. I'm just not going to do those things that you thought were going to provide the return, because it's not in my interests. I've got no incentive to do it. And so the Laffer curve shows that, oh, you don't get what you expect. You get far lower. And actually, how do you raise revenues? You cut taxes. You make growth possible, because the less the government is taking out of my pocket, the more I can do things with, and the more return I can get on my investment. That's all business, basically. And that way, I'm paying more taxes. My employees would pay taxes. The more employees I have is the more taxes they pay. And the bigger and the more vibrant the economy becomes, and suddenly the greater the money the exchequer receives from taxes becomes. But the Labour government are myopic communists, and they refuse to understand it. They just refuse to understand. Again, this is not complex economic theory. It is well-trodden ground. This is quite simple, quite straightforward. It's easily demonstrable. It's happened many times. We're literally in the middle of it right now, and someone who is an economic illiterate can understand this. So surely the Labour government can too.